Next, we have Saul Sarney. Mr. Sarney's practices focuses on wrongful death, personal injury, accident claims, and wrongful denial of insurance benefits. Obviously, he's been with CTLA for a while. In 2017, CTLA probably honored Saul with the Kenneth Norman Kripke Lifetime Achievement Award. He currently serves on the Board of Directors on the Executive Committee. He also co-chairs CTLA's Case Assistance Committee. And this committee develops, promotes, and maintains programs such as the CTLA listserv. That's the official introduction I'm supposed to give. When I was talking to Saul, he said, "Tell him I'm a trial lawyer."
Yes, that's it.
Thank you. I am here because I am the co-chair of the Case Assistance Committee, along with Mary Bush and Sam Cannon. I'm also here because, as some of you may have noticed, during the election cycle, there was a disturbance in the force on the listserv. But the topic that was listed in the program for me was listserv rules. But I'd like to start off talking about how to make the listserv more effective for you and your colleagues, because that's really what it does. And I'll get to the disciplinary part of this presentation a little bit later. But I'd like to talk about some things that you can make the listserv more efficient for you. One of them is to think about how you use a description of your topic in the listserv. It makes it more efficient for everybody. It makes it more likely, if you describe it adequately, that people are going to open it and actually respond to it. The other thing that there are several things I want to talk about. One of them is that frequently what I find is if I'm looking at something on the list, I just see the last response rather than the entire string. So there are instructions in the materials that I gave you about how to include the entire string. The simplest way is not to respond in the body of the message itself, but to respond in your email box and just hit reply. That will include the entire string so somebody can follow it all the way through. The other thing is that I've given some examples in the material that I prepared. So there are some really good examples of how to communicate what it is so that people can get it, and also so they can find it in the listserv later, or in the archive later on. So by way of example, somebody wrote, "Diversity jurisdiction and UIM claim with State Farm." That's great. You know what it is when you see it. You can go to the archive and search for it, and you will probably find it. There's one, Harry Bleeker, deposition conduct. Well, you've got a number of different things there that overlap. You can probably find that in the archive. You can probably find it on the list and know exactly what it is. Then there are some that are less helpful, like re-UIM coverage. That inquiry had to do with whether there's UIM coverage on an ATV that could be used to stack coverage while the owner insured was driving a car. Now, think about how that might have been, how the title to that could have given people information without having to open the email. Because we get so many of those on the listserv that unless it grabs us right away, we probably are going to pass it by. It also makes it easier later on if somebody wants to look at ATV for any reason, it'll come up. But if you look at ATV stacking UIM, then you can get to it in the archive and it'll save you time and be more useful to people. And then there are some, and please don't take offense if you are the folks that I'm referring to, because I've done the same thing, but things like referral, things like trial question. Who knows what they are? They're never going to be useful in the archive, and very often you're going to have people who aren't going to pay any attention to it. So this is one of the issues that we deal with. And I thought this was about miscommunication. And I don't know if you can see this, but I thought it was pretty funny. Nobody seems to be laughing at it, but I did. And then we have things like this. And these are also, what I did is I just Googled things about miscommunication on the internet. And these are the kinds of things that we talk about, and they're the kinds of things that are pretty simple but to keep in mind when you're using the listserv. And then this is sort of the disagreement about, my words came out fine, but you're not receiving them the way I intended. So think also about how the recipient is going to get them, not just how you're thinking about them. Now what I also want to get to is this. This is why we were asked to speak on this topic in the first place. And during the election cycle, things became extraordinarily uncivil. So these are kind of the baseline rules. And I thought I wasn't going to say this, but I'm going to say it. The basic rule for being on the listserv and engaging in civility is don't be an asshole. And what that means is you can You can disagree about issues. Personal attacks will not be tolerated. Absolutely not. You want to disagree about issues? That's fine. You attack a person, you're going to be disciplined, and that includes suspension from the listserv. We take this very seriously. This is one of the most valuable resources we have. Now, people have talked about how long I've been around, and at some point I'll have to acknowledge that. But before we had the listserv, before we had email, before we had wheels and cars and horses, we were small groups of people fighting against firms that were funded by insurance companies. Collectively, we have the resources to be powerful. Individually, we don't. And any discord amongst us does not serve us in any way whatsoever. It hurts us and harms us. So there's a couple of things. One of the other things along those lines is there is a new listserv etiquette and a new listserv contract. By virtue of your participation on the listserv, you've agreed to the terms of both of those. When you renew your membership, you'll have to sign documents indicating that you've agreed to those things. The other thing that's important is if you're going to post something that's political, you are now required to put political in the subject heading. That way, the people, and there are many of us, or many of you, who don't want to deal with it. And that way they know what it is, and they don't have to engage if they don't want to. So that's it. I really appreciate your paying attention to this. I thank you all for the communal efforts that you give to us to make all of us together better trial lawyers and be able to do a better job for our clients. Thank you.